Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. Thanks for having me tonight. I know you're late, and I really appreciate, as a volunteer myself, I really appreciate the time that you're putting in, and it doesn't go unnoticed by all of us. So Ashland's got a special place in my heart. I've worked here for many, many years and in many positions. And I've always been passionate about urban forestry and trees and where they can intersect and help us solve other issues and problems that our societies are facing. The Inflation Reduction Act has $1.5 billion coming down to urban forestry, dedicated to equity, advancing equity in urban forestry. The majority of that money is being allocated to, it was originally going to be allocated to the state forestry programs, like the Oregon Department of Forestry. And they had requested $36 million for the state of Oregon. They had requested, I'm also the president for Oregon Community Trees, which is the advisory council for ODF, Urban Community Forestry, and the U.S. Forest Service Region 6 Urban Forestry Division. And they had requested that I consider taking Oregon Community Trees to an executive director level and allocating some of this pass-through funding to other organizations throughout the state. And I told them that my passion and my energy lies here in Southern Oregon and always has, and that I don't feel like focusing on the entire state is within my purview or my passion. And so I'm focusing. I started a not-for-profit, 501c3 not-for-profit, in hopes of acquiring some of this grant funding specifically for Jackson, Josephine, and Klamath counties, which is what I consider Southern Oregon. There are 16 municipalities that are in that area and 123 K-12 schools. There's Southern Oregon University, Oregon Institute of Technology, Klamath Community College, Road Community College, and I feel like I'm missing a couple other colleges or trade schools that I would like to work with as well. So big shoes here, like lots of projects going on. The initiative that I'm funding has 11 different goals and objectives to accomplish. And one of those is reaching out to communities and offering assistance, grant-funded assistance, to help analyze the urban forest in each municipality and create master plans or help facilitate the creation of master plans for urban forestry that help your community know what you have as a resource. And this hits on a lot of different levels, and it interacts with a lot of different departments and things that are already, initiatives that are already underway. Trees, as you know, sequester carbon, and carbon credits are a big deal. If you don't know what you have, that's the first step. So doing a tree inventory, and so that we can see how many trees are within the city of Ashland. What are the ecological value of those trees that are within the city? How much carbon is sequestered? How much stormwater runoff is prevented? How much air pollution is filtered out because of the trees that are here? And how can we document that? So I formed a advisory board, and I have a not-for-profit board that's I have a board of directors, and then I have an advisory board that is separate to that. And Jeffrey Donovan is going to be the key that serves on my advisory board. He's the leading researcher for the human health benefits of urban trees for the U.S. Forest Service, and is helping me put together ways to monitor the effective results of the grant programs that we're going to put into context for partners like the city of Ashland. The grant funding timeline for this is extremely short. Like I said, Oregon had requested $36 million. They got 10% of that request. The federal government, USDA, withheld the remaining $1 billion and are going to grant that out themselves. And you have until June 1st as a not-for-profit organization to apply for the grant funding. They released the notice of funding 30 days ago. So they want, because this work is focused predominantly on advancing equity in urban forestry, they want partnership agreements in place with communities that have disproportionately disadvantaged people in their community. So Southern Oregon, every municipality in Southern Oregon, is on the Justice 40 map for disadvantaged communities, including Ashland. And so what I'm requesting from you is the consideration of signing a non-binding, like non-legally binding partnership agreement with my not-for-profit that says that at a future date, if I secure funding, that you'd be interested in entering into a conversation about how we could collaborate and work together to create an urban forestry master plan that also outlines funding for planting, preservation, removal of hazardous trees, and pruning to preserve existing trees that are in our community that are valuable to us as a community. I put together this PowerPoint presentation that kind of highlights some of the questions that I would ask a council. So Ashland doesn't have an urban forester. There's a parks arborist that works. His name's Peter. He's an amazing person. I worked with him for several years. I also sat on the Ashland Tree Commission for 5 or 6 years. And so I know a lot about the urban forest in Ashland. I know that we don't know exactly what we have here. We haven't documented it. We don't have a full tree inventory of even the public trees, the ones that are in our right-of-ways and our street strips. And we don't have a management plan in place that effectively prepares us for things like emerald ash borer, which was discovered in Cottage Grove this year in Oregon. Emerald ash borer destroyed 1.5 billion trees in 5 years on the East Coast, and a lot of Dr. Donovan's research, who is my advisory board person, focused on what happens in a community when you lose 40% of your street trees. And what he found was that it correlates directly with the 3 leading causes of death. So as the tree mortality happened, human mortality was happening at a roughly comparable rate. So the 3 leading causes of death were cancer, heart disease, and lower respiratory infections. And so when he moved from the East Coast and took that research there, came to Oregon, and he's up in Portland, the Oregon Health, it's the OHSU, Oregon Health and Sciences University, keeps extensive data on the neighborhoods by neighborhood in Portland of health disparities. And Friends of Trees in Portland has documented every tree that they've planted for 60 years. And so he hypothesized that the opposite must be true. So if the lack of urban canopy in your neighborhoods and in your communities increases those 3 leading causes of death, then planting trees should lower those 3 leading causes of death. He directly correlated that research and published multiple books on this, multiple topics and white papers. It's proven that trees in our communities increase mental health, they increase students' ability to focus and do well on test scores, they decrease our stormwater runoff, they decrease our energy expenditures for our homes, they protect us from extreme wind events, they can protect us from firestorms. The right tree in the right place, extremely critical for our urban environments. So the question is, how is Ashland doing, and whether or not you pay attention to this every day and how it interacts with you in your general life, is what I'd ask you to consider. This is my not-for-profit logo, and these are my 3 main partners: Plant Oregon Nursery, the Oregon Department of Forestry, and Oregon Community Trees. I also have the full support of the Director of Education for the Oregon Department of Education. His name is Colt Gill. I've had several meetings with him, and through this process, I'm going to be working with the 123 K-12 schools to make them mini master plans, because campus greening is a huge necessity in our area. This is an example of a tree inventory. So right now, the Oregon Department of Forestry has a free inventory software program. It's called Tree Plotter. It's available to any city in Oregon. They're requesting that everybody use the same one so that the Oregon Department of Forestry can collaborate and consolidate this data so that they can show on a statewide level what we're doing. The program goes through and you inventory tree by tree, and you put in the species, the crown spread, which is how big the canopy is, the estimated height of the tree, and then the diameter of the stem at 4.5 feet, which is average height. And from that data, it uses iTree, and it generates your ecological benefits of that tree. So it can tell you the entire urban forest, once you have all of your trees inventoried, what is your annual carbon sequestration, what is your lifetime carbon sequestration based off the life of those trees, what is your gallons of stormwater runoff prevented, what's the financial cost of that or the benefit from that, how much air quality are you improving? And in our area, I would say that with our summertime smoke that we've been having, the more trees we can plant in our communities that are filtering out that smoke, the better. And this does this automatically. So with emerald ash borer being discovered in Oregon, ash trees, in particular the Oregon ash, is one of our most predominant native species in all of our riparian waterways. So we have cottonwoods, ash, and usually incense cedar and ponderosa pine and alders and some willows, right? That's like our major makeup. But ash has along the I-5 corridor from Portland all the way down here to Southern Oregon, ash is like 40% of the makeup of our riparian corridors. And so it has a very quick path from up in Cottage Grove, where it was discovered, right down here to Southern Oregon. It's extremely destructive, and there's actually a calculator specifically for it in this inventory software that's free for us to use from ODF. And it actually shows you, after you do the inventory, you'll know all of the ash trees in your community, the approximate size of those ash trees, and then it has a calculator for you can enter in what is the average cost of removal of an 18-inch diameter, 40-foot tall ash tree. And it will tell you what is the economic loss that your community is going to be facing. And then you can divide that by what is the city responsible street trees that we're going to lose, and how can we start funding the replacement and removal of those trees. Very important conversation to have. Diversity, extremely important in our urban forest. This is just an example of a Southern Oregon tree inventory on diversity, this is super common. Red maples usually make up about 30% of our urban forest. They're really overplanted. In general, ash trees are making up 7 to 10% of our urban forest. We have a serious lack of conifers because of the fire-wise ordinances in Ashland and the work that's been done to make Ashland more fire resistant or resilient as a community. We will see over the next 50 years a significant decrease in the amount of conifers that are in this community, which is a conversation in itself, but again, the right tree for the right place. And then this is what I'm proposing is, I don't want to, and this is at the advice of other city managers, is if there's no community buy-in, like if I come in, which I can come in 100% grant funded and say, I want to do this work for Ashland for free, if I get the grant that I'm requesting. Without that community buy-in, these won't be legacy urban forestry programs. Nobody's going to take this when I'm done with it and say, I want to champion this and move it forward. And so what I would be requesting down the road is some sort of community buy-in, whether that's matched funding through maybe the tree commission and the time and effort that they're willing to put in to come out and help inventory trees. That could all get counted towards this match. Realizing that I'm at a budget meeting essentially tonight where there's a lot of unfunded priorities. I see this being a new initiative, fairly low on the priority list, and so want to encourage you to understand that I will fully honor that and come in and support Ashland in whatever means I need to in order to work with you. And we do this in a full public engagement, open process. I've been serving on boards for the last 15 years. I was the park superintendent for Ashland. I've helped in master planning processes. I have helped in community engagement processes. We've done the sticky dots. We've brought people in. I've done surveys. This is all things that I'm proposing to do as my not-for-profit. So we're not building plans and then selling them to people. We're bringing the community in, listening to their needs, their desires. We're focused predominantly on equity. And I just heard, we were talking earlier about manufactured mobile home parks, low-income areas, having disproportionately felt the burden of electricity bills and that secular cycle that you were talking about. We saw this in Talent post-fire. The Talent Mobile Estates was one of the most beautiful connected canopies. All the trees burned. They're going to rebuild. We did a heat index. We looked at heat mapping, and pre-fire and post-fire, it's gone up 62 degrees after the fire. So without tree canopy, there's a 62-degree difference between the temperature of the asphalt in direct sunlight and the temperature of the asphalt under the tree canopy.
Wow.
Manufactured mobile homes, they're less insulated than stick-built houses in the majority of them. And so those places, and we can see this on GIS mapping, which is what we utilize to target these different neighborhoods. We look at density, we look at socioeconomic data to make these priority locations, and really try and target tree plantings where people need it the most. One of the issues that we run into is that a lot of times in high density areas, they haven't left a lot of places for trees. So sometimes we'll have to be building places specifically for trees. With the Ashland Tree Commission, we're looking at helping make recommendations to ordinances that can help provide that in the future, so that when you're building spaces, you're building parking lots. Ashland's really progressive. If you build a parking lot and you have 100 car spaces, the goal should be to have 40% shade coverage on that parking lot in 10 years. We don't need that asphalt reflective heat, right? But if you don't guide people and tell them what 10 tree species will provide that canopy coverage in the next 10 years in Southern Oregon with limited water and climate change at our doorstep, people will plant red maples, and they're just not going to do the 40% canopy coverage. So, sorry, that was a long-winded conversation. That was one direction.
Good info.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, very interesting questions. Councillor Bloom.
Thank you, Mayor. No question, just I fully support this. I think that it's kind of one side of a two-sided coin of what we're trying to do in the watershed with the division chief for forestry is trying to do with the fire department. So yeah, I fully support this. I look forward to getting that grant. Hope you to get it. Come back and let's have more conversations about how to move forward.
Thank you.
And so we'll see this again tomorrow evening.